For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On a treacherous summer morning in 2001, 16-year-old Mateo Rangel, leading 5 younger teens from his church youth group, ventured deep into Glacier National Park near Cut Bank Pass. Amidst a sudden whiteout, they left their designated trail, seeking shelter. They never arrived at their backcountry camp. Despite an extensive, multi-agency investigation spanning weeks, coordinated by backcountry ranger Jill Torgeson and Blackfeet SAR liaison Noah Running Crane, Mateo, and the 5 younger teens vanished without a trace into the unforgiving snowfields. For 2 agonizing years, their families lived with crushing uncertainty and unanswered questions, clutching at every faint hope. Then, in 2003, a startling discovery was made. Mateo Rangel, alone and gaunt, emerged from the Blackfeet Reservation side of the park. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Mateo Rangel and the vanished youth group. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. The majestic peaks of Glacier National Park rise with an ancient indifference, their formidable beauty concealing an unforgiving wilderness. In the summer of 2001, this stark grandeur became the backdrop for an unsettling mystery. High above the tree line, near the treacherous Cut Bank Pass snowfields and the imposing mass of Bad Marriage Mountain, a group of 6 young people embarked on what was intended to be a memorable journey. Among them was Mateo Rangel, a 16-year-old youth leader in training, guiding 5 younger teens from their church group. Their expedition into the park's rugged interior was part of a broader spiritual and team-building retreat, a common endeavor in the serene, yet challenging environment of Montana's crown jewel. On a Tuesday in August, as the group navigated the exposed terrain of Cut Bank Pass, the weather, notoriously fickle in the high Rockies, turned with alarming speed. What began as a clear morning quickly deteriorated into a fierce whiteout. Visibility plummeted to mere feet, the landscape dissolving into a swirling vortex of snow and wind. Disoriented and exposed to the rapidly dropping temperatures, Mateo Rangel made a critical decision. Believing it safer to seek immediate shelter than to press on blindly or attempt to backtrack, he led his group off the established trail, away from the marked path and into the featureless expanse of the snow-covered slopes. They moved with the intention of finding a natural overhang or a sheltered depression where they could wait out the storm. Back at their designated base camp, located several miles distant, the late afternoon brought a growing unease. Chaperone Ms. D, responsible for the group, noted the worsening weather with increasing concern. As dusk approached, then deepened into night, the 6 teens failed to check in. Attempts to reach Mateo Rangel via handheld radio yielded only static. The alarm escalated rapidly from concern to urgent distress. By midnight, a frantic call was placed to park authorities, initiating the first phase of what would become a complex and confounding investigation. The vast, unforgiving wilderness of Glacier National Park had seemingly swallowed the group whole. 6 young lives, a youth leader and 5 younger teens, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the profound, chilling silence of their sudden and complete disappearance. The call from Ms. D activated an immediate, large-scale search and rescue operation. Within hours of the alarm, Glacier National Park mobilized its resources, dispatching ground teams and preparing for aerial surveillance, though the persistent whiteout conditions severely hampered initial efforts. The urgency was palpable. 6 young lives were exposed to the brutal elements of the high mountains, and time was a critical factor. Backcountry ranger Jill Torgeson quickly assumed a central role in coordinating the park's response. A veteran of Glacier's unforgiving terrain, Torgeson understood the profound challenges ahead. Alongside her, Noah Running Crane, a seasoned Blackfeet search and rescue liaison, joined the command center. Running Crane brought not only decades of tracking experience, but also an intimate, generational knowledge of the land, its hidden dangers, and its subtle indicators, offering a crucial cultural perspective to the increasingly desperate effort. The search itself proved exceptionally difficult. The whiteout that had disoriented Mateo's group lingered for several more days, transforming the already rugged landscape into a treacherous, disorienting maze. Deep, fresh snow covered any potential tracks or signs, while the vastness of the cutbank past snowfields, punctuated by steep cliffs and hidden ravines, swallowed search grids whole. Teams on the ground battled not only the extreme weather, but also the sheer scale of the wilderness, attempting to cover an area where a group that had deliberately left the trail could be anywhere. Initial hopes, fueled by the sheer volume of personnel and resources, began to wane as the first days passed without any sign. The escalating concern within the command center and among the families mirrored the deteriorating conditions outside. Despite the relentless efforts of dozens of experienced searchers, the wilderness offered no answers. No discarded gear, no footprints leading off into the snow, no makeshift shelter, no personal items, nothing was found. The baffling absence of any definitive clues, any tangible evidence of the group's passage or their ultimate fate, began to settle like a cold dread over the investigation. It was as if Mateo Rangel and the 5 younger teens had not merely become lost, but had simply ceased to exist within the formidable expanse of Glacier National Park. The initial, frantic days of the search for Mateo Rangel and the 5 younger teens eventually gave way to a grim reality. As weeks turned into a month, and the harsh mountain winter began to assert its dominion over Glacier National Park, the difficult decision was made to scale back the intensive search efforts. The initial surge of hundreds of volunteers, park rangers, and SAR personnel, bolstered by specialized equipment and aerial reconnaissance, could not be sustained indefinitely. The immense financial outlay and the sheer exhaustion of human resources became unsustainable. Without any new clues or a definitive search area, the operation became increasingly inefficient. The relentless, exhaustive grid searches yielded nothing but the vast, empty expanse of the wilderness. The command center, once a hive of activity and strained hope, gradually quieted. Personnel were redeployed, and the overwhelming presence of emergency services slowly receded, leaving the case in a disheartening state of limbo, a file that grew thicker with reports but offered no answers. For the families of the missing teens, for the members of their church community, and especially for Ms. D, the chaperone, the scaling back of the search was a devastating blow. Each day without news deepened the wound of ambiguous loss, a grief without a body, without a definitive end. They grappled with the agonizing uncertainty, caught between the faint hope of a miraculous return and the creeping dread of the worst possible outcome. The community rallied, holding vigils, offering prayers, and circulating appeals for information across state lines, but the silence from the mountains remained absolute. The disappearance transformed from an urgent crisis into a lingering, unresolved tragedy, a local legend whispered with a somber reverence, and a national mystery that baffled seasoned investigators and armchair theorists alike. Without a single piece of concrete evidence, speculation flourished: accidental fall, hypothermia, animal attack, or even abduction, but none could ever be substantiated. 2 years passed. The seasons cycled through Glacier National Park twice, each brutal winter burying the landscape in deep snow, each summer revealing its rugged beauty anew. With each passing month, the hope of finding Mateo and the others alive diminished further, eventually fading into a near-complete resignation. The file on the vanished youth group became a cold case, a testament to the unforgiving power of the wilderness and the elusive nature of truth. The initial headlines faded, replaced by new stories, but for those directly impacted, the void remained, a perpetual reminder of the 6 young lives swallowed by the mountains, their fate an agonizing, enduring enigma. 2 years after the youth group's disappearance, the vastness of Glacier National Park continued its silent vigil. While the active search had long been suspended, the park's operational rhythm persisted. Backcountry rangers, including Jill Torgeson, still patrolled the remote trails and high passes, carrying out their duties of maintenance, wildlife monitoring, and occasional rescue, albeit with a haunting awareness of the unsolved mystery. It was during one such routine patrol in the late summer of the third year that a discovery was made, far from any established path, amidst the rugged, exposed terrain north of Cutbank Pass. A park technician, surveying erosion patterns on a remote ridge, stumbled upon an anomaly. What appeared at first to be a piece of weather-beaten plastic, caught on a wind-scoured cairn, revealed itself upon closer inspection to be something profoundly significant. Fused by years of relentless wind, sun, and freezing temperatures to the rough stones of the cairn, was a laminated memory verse card. Its edges were frayed, the plastic scratched and dulled, but the printed words, a passage from Scripture, were still discernible. The card was small, personal, and unequivocally linked to the vanished church youth group. Each of the teens had been given such a card as part of their retreat. The discovery was immediately reported, drawing a small team, including Ranger Torgeson, back to the desolate site. This was the first tangible evidence, the first physical trace of the missing group since their vanishing act. Its location, high in the exposed snowfields near where Mateo Rangel had last been confirmed, corroborated the group's general trajectory. The card was not merely a memento. It was a chilling confirmation that the youth group had indeed traversed this unforgiving landscape, enduring the very conditions that had likely sealed their fate. It spoke of their presence, their struggle, and the ultimate silence that had followed. While it offered no explanation for their ultimate demise, nor did it reveal the whereabouts of the bodies, this small, weather-beaten card provided a poignant, if grim, piece of the puzzle. It rekindled a limited, somber interest in the cold case, a stark reminder that the mountains held secrets, slowly, painfully, to be revealed. 2 years and 3 months after disappearing into the unforgiving embrace of Glacier National Park, an impossible event unfolded. On a crisp autumn afternoon, a lone figure stumbled out of the wilderness onto the Blackfeet Reservation, near the eastern boundary of the park. Emaciated, disoriented, and bearing the deep scars of prolonged exposure, it was Mateo Rangel. The 16-year-old youth leader, presumed lost forever, had returned. The shock that rippled through the local communities, from Browning to Kalispell, was immediate and profound. Disbelief warred with a desperate, fragile hope. Law enforcement, including Ranger Jill Torgeson and Blackfeet SAR liaison Noah Running Crane, were notified with a sense of urgent astonishment. The cold case, once a somber historical footnote, had just been ripped wide open by the miraculous return of its central figure. Mateo Rangel's initial account was fragmented, delivered in a low, raspy voice, punctuated by long pauses and visible tremors. Under the careful questioning of Torgeson and Running Crane, who approached him with a mixture of professional skepticism and profound empathy, a chilling narrative began to emerge. He recounted the whiteout, the decision to leave the trail, and the desperate search for shelter. Critically, Mateo described how, as the storm intensified, they had stumbled upon an old, seemingly deserted ranger cache. The small, sturdy cabin offered a potential haven from the relentless elements, a place where they might have found warmth and supplies. Yet, Mateo's recollection was that it appeared unused, its door unsecured but the interior offering no immediate sign of recent human presence or the supplies typically stored within. This detail immediately raised questions. If a shelter existed, why was it deserted, and why didn't the group utilize it more effectively? Then came the more disturbing revelation. Mateo spoke of finding a tent, not merely abandoned, but sealed from the inside. He described the fabric cinched tight, the zippers meticulously fastened, creating an impenetrable barrier against the outside world. This was not a tent simply left behind. It was a tent that had been purposefully enclosed by its occupants, a detail that defied logical explanation for a group seeking rescue or escape. It implied a deliberate act, a conscious decision to seal themselves within, or perhaps a desperate attempt to keep something out. The image of that sealed tent, deep in the wilderness, became a haunting foe. Point for the investigators. Mateo's miraculous return, coupled with his initial, perplexing account, immediately transformed the nature of the investigation. No longer was it a search for bodies or a simple missing persons case. It was now an active, albeit deeply mysterious, inquiry into what precisely had transpired in the mountains. The focus shifted from the elements to the human element, raising unsettling questions about the deserted cache, the sealed tent, and the fate of the 5 other teens who remained missing. The mountains, it seemed, had not only swallowed a youth group but had now returned one, bearing a story that was far more complex and sinister than anyone could have imagined. Mateo Rangel's initial, fragmented account had opened a new, disturbing chapter in the Glacier National Park mystery. Yet, as he recovered physically and emotionally, a more complete and profoundly unsettling narrative began to coalesce. Under the continued, patient questioning of Ranger Jill Torgeson and Noah Running Crane, the full weight of his 2-year ordeal and the events of that fateful night slowly came into focus. It was not the deserted ranger cache or the sealed tent that would prove to be the most critical revelation, but a detail Mateo had suppressed, perhaps out of trauma, perhaps out of a primal instinct to survive. He described the whiteout conditions with vivid clarity, the blinding snow, and the desperate search for shelter. He recounted leading the group off the trail, the fear and disorientation, and their eventual discovery of the ranger cache, which they briefly considered before pressing on due to its apparent disuse. He then detailed finding the mysterious tent, sealed from within. But it was the moments leading up to that discovery, in the swirling chaos of the storm, that held the true breakthrough. Mateo revealed that as his group struggled through the deep snow, battling the wind and nearly zero visibility, he had noticed something else in the brief, fleeting moments when the snow eased slightly. There, paralleling their own footprints, was a distinct, second boot path. It was fresher, deliberately placed, and clearly shadowing their trajectory. This was the seismic shift the investigation desperately needed. The revelation of a second boot path immediately transformed the understanding of the disappearance. No longer was it merely a tragic case of a youth group lost to the elements. It now carried the chilling implication of foul play. The presence of an unknown third party, actively tracking the teens in such extreme conditions, suggested an unforeseen encounter, an interception, or even a deliberate targeting. The theory of an accidental vanishing, which had dominated for 2 years, crumbled instantly. Jill Torgeson and Noah Running Crane understood the profound implications. Their focus immediately shifted from environmental factors to human intent. New lines of inquiry opened up, centered on identifying who else might have been in that remote section of the park during the whiteout, and more critically, why they would have been following Mateo Rangel's group. Every piece of information, every detail Mateo could recall about the second path, its size, the type of boot prints, its proximity to their own, became paramount. The chilling understanding settled over the investigators. The youth group had not been alone in the wilderness. They had potentially been intercepted, and the true threat they faced that night was not merely the unforgiving mountain, but something far more sinister. Mateo Rangel's harrowing account, especially the revelation of the second boot path shadowing his group, provided a grim, albeit incomplete, resolution to the 2-year mystery. The understanding that the youth group had not simply succumbed to the elements, but had likely encountered another human presence, shifted the entire narrative from tragedy to potential crime. It was a truth that offered a measure of clarity, yet simultaneously plunged the case into a deeper, more unsettling ambiguity. The mountains had not merely swallowed the teens. they had concealed a more sinister interaction. Despite Mateo's miraculous return, the fate of the 5 other younger teens remained a profound, agonizing question. Extensive new searches were mounted, focusing on the areas Mateo described, particularly around the deserted ranger cache and the site of the sealed tent. Investigators, now armed with the knowledge of an unknown third party, scoured every crevice and snowfield, but the wilderness once again yielded little. No trace of the other 5 children was ever found. Their disappearance, though now understood to be linked to a human element rather than just a natural disaster, remained an open wound for their families, a perpetual state of unresolved grief. The questions that lingered were as vast as the landscape itself. Who was the individual or individuals responsible for the second boot path? What was their motive for tracking a church youth group in a whiteout? What exactly transpired inside the mysterious, sealed tent Mateo had discovered? Was it a sanctuary, a trap, or something else entirely? These critical details remained shrouded in the impenetrable silence of the mountains, leaving a chilling void in the heart of the investigation. For Mateo Rangel, the sole survivor, the ordeal was far from over. He carried the immense burden of his knowledge, the traumatic memories of that night, and the unspoken weight of being the only one to return. His life was forever marked by the disappearance, a testament to both his improbable survival and the enduring mystery of his lost companions. The Glacier National Park disappearance became a chilling true crime story, forever defined by Mateo's miraculous return and his shocking revelation. It fundamentally altered the understanding of what happened that night, transforming a story of vanishing into a chilling narrative of interception and unknown intent. The case, though partially resolved by Mateo's testimony, left an indelible mark on the families, the park, and the collective memory of a community forever haunted by the secrets held within the unforgiving embrace of the mountains.